Chapter 13. Nala. Terror pumped through Nala's heart as she dove into the water-filled pit and scrambled after Abena. She skidded on the slippery sludge, tumbling face first into the mud. "Nala, help me!" Abena screamed. Panic surged within Nala as the violent thumping of heavy footfalls pounding the ground grew louder. They had to get out. Now. If they didn't, it would mean certain death for both her and Abena. Nala pushed herself up and immediately sank back down into the mud. The pounding grew louder. The mud rippled through like the surface of the waterhole when a bird dropped a rock in its center. She could feel the ground vibrating, the rumble becoming more intense with every second that passed. Nala peered over her shoulder. It would only take 2 steps to make it back to dry ground, but she refused to leave without Abena, even if it meant her own demise. But that wasn't going to happen either. She would get them out of this. She refused to allow a stampede to rob their pride of 2 more members. By sheer force of will, Nala steadied herself on all 4s and crawled through the thick mud until she reached Abena. She clamped the cub's scruff between her teeth and pulled. "Come on! Come on! Come on!" With one last pull, Nala heaved Abena out of the muck and onto more stable land. She'd done it. She'd actually done it. "We have to get out of here," Abena screamed, knocking Nala out of her shocked daze. "This way," Nala yelled, and ushered Abena ahead of her, nudging the cub's hindquarters with her head before they both took off for the closest tree. Nala glanced to her right. Her eyes widened at the pack of elephants charging towards them at full speed. "Climb! Climb! Climb!" she yelled. "Get to that thick branch and hold on tight." Nala made it to the branch just after Abena, right as the first elephant stormed past the tree. She wrapped her forelegs around Abena, who was firmly holding on to the branch. "I've got you," Nala shouted into her ear. "Just keep holding it tight." The tree canted from side to side, leaning so far towards the ground that Nala feared they had not climbed high enough. As if the swaying wasn't bad enough, the tree shook like the elephants were trying to wiggle marula fruit free from the branches. If either of them let go for even a second, they would go tumbling to the ground. The stampede seemed to go on forever, though it lasted only a few minutes. As far as Nala could tell, there were only about 24 elephants in total. Unbidden, Scar's description of the wildebeest stampede that had killed Mufasa popped up in her mind. She could scarcely imagine the devastation thousands and thousands of animal hooves left behind. Overwhelming anguish ripped through her at the thought of what their king had faced that horrible day. And Simba. Please, please let him be alive. Let him have not gone through such terrible pain. "Do you think it's safe to climb down?" Abena asked from underneath her. "What?" Nala blinked several times, Abena's inquiry knocking her out of her uncomfortable memories of the past and back into the present. "We should be safe now that they've passed, but let me make sure everything is okay." She lifted her head and surveyed the land around them to ensure there were no stragglers that had fallen behind the stampede. She saw no elephants and only a few other animals off in the distance. Based on the shape of their horns, it looked like a family of kudus. "All appears to be safe," Nala said. She led the way down the tree, taking in the difference in the texture of the ground following the stampede. The elephants had kicked up mud and pulverized rocks into dust. Another chill ran through her when she thought of what would have happened had she and Abena but been too far away from the tree, or if they had stayed stuck in that mud for just a minute longer. They would have been crushed, never to be heard from again. But that hadn't happened, because she had saved them both. She had really done it. Sure, she had panicked for a moment, but then she'd pushed her fear aside and got the job done. How she wished her mother had been here to witness it all. That was scary, Abena said. I didn't know elephants could run so fast. Anything can run fast if you give it a good reason to, Nala said. Even hippopotamuses? She nodded. Some hippos can run as fast as elephants. The dust the elephants had stirred up with their stampede began to settle, but something eerie still hung in the air. Nala looked up at the sky. The white clouds that had hovered above them had turned dark gray. They were also much closer, so close it felt as if she would be able to reach up and grab one if she were but a little taller. A fat raindrop landed on her nose. She blinked several times in confusion. She had missed yesterday's brief storm, only seen the results of it as she and Abena traveled across the clearing and grasslands during their escape from Pride Rock. The dry season had lasted so long that she had forgotten what rain felt like, but as the thick raindrops began to tumble with fierce speed from the heavy clouds, Nala could tell this was different from a typical rainstorm. She had heard the elder lionesses speak of the wet seasons of the past and how unpredictable the weather had become in more recent years. The rain began to fall harder, and a loud crack of thunder rent the air. We need to find shelter, Nala called to Abena. I noticed a kopje while we were up in the tree. Hopefully we can reach it before the storm gets too bad. Nala led the way, heading for the small hill she'd spotted. This part of the savannah remained flat, but it was speckled with kopjes, rock formations that were smaller than Pride Rock, but still sufficient for shelter. The kopjes she had seen appeared to have trees they could hide under, but she was hoping there was an overhang that could provide even better protection. By the time she and Abena arrived at the kopje, the rain was coming down so hard Nala could barely make out the hill. She slipped several times as she scaled its rocks, made slicker by the pummeling rain. Over there, she called, pointing to a large boulder with a flat surface. Another rock hung over it, offering a shield from the relentless rain. Nala noticed something scurrying from the area. She figured it was a rodent, or a pygmy fox, or some other creature that could possibly have been a meal, but food was not priority at the moment. Staying safely out of this fierce storm was the only thing she cared about right now. Once she and Abena reached the tiny alcove, then moved as far away from the opening as they could. A bright light flashed in the sky, followed by frighteningly loud thunder that seemed to roll on and on for the longest time. I'm scared, Abena said, burying her face against Nala's chest. Nala rocked gently back and forth, remembering how good that always made her feel when her mother would do the same with her. Despite the strain that had stretched between Nala and her mother lately, a fierce longing for her mother's embrace slammed into Nala. Nothing felt safer than being surrounded by her solid strength, her tongue issuing comforting licks to the top of Nala's head. The moment she'd experienced with Abena today had given her a glimpse into the responsibility her mother must have felt to keep Nala safe, the fear she'd suffered while trying desperately to tug Abena out of the mud pit before the elephants arrived, to protect her while up in that tree, was all-consuming. In those moments, making sure the young cub was safe was the only thing that mattered. Guilt rushed through Nala with the fierceness of an overflowing river at the realization of how worried her mother must be right now. I'm okay, Mama. Maybe if she concentrated on the words hard enough, her mother would somehow feel them. The rain and thunder continued to batter them. Nala held onto Abena for both the cub's sake and her own, until finally, after what seemed like a lifetime, the rain began to tap her off, and the heavy gray clouds drifted past them, ushering in the bright sun. Abena's tiny body still shook. Nala, the cub said. I don't want to go on an adventure anymore. Nala jerked her head back. What? This is too scary. I want to go back home. We can't go back, she argued. Yes, we can, Abena said. We just have to walk through that elephant graveyard and the scrubland, and then we're back at Pride Rock. Please, Nala, I don't want to go to Caramba. Nala wanted to scream. She knew she never should have allowed the cub to follow her. She should have predicted this. Abena was nothing but a baby. She wasn't ready for a journey of this magnitude. I'm going to Caramba. You can return to Pride Rock if you want to, Nala said. Abena looked up at her with frightened, wide eyes. By myself? I will lose an entire day if I have to take you back, Nala said. Abena's eyes filled with tears. Nala threw her head back and growled, because she knew there was no way she could allow the cub to return to Pride Rock on her own. Chances were high that Abena would get lost before she ever made it through the Shadowlands. If she made it through the Shadowlands, she would probably get eaten by a cheetah or a hyena or any number of animals just waiting to sink their teeth into a plump lion cub. I'm sorry, Abena said. I just want to go home. Please just take me home. Nala released a frustrated sigh. She knew what she had to do.